Welcome back to my channel. I am back with another Baddies Africa review, so let's just get right into it. So this episode picks up where the last one left off, where Pretty P, Russian Cream, Kold Killa, and Tavii were outside having a conversation, and while they were having this conversation, Dolly and Summer end up coming out there, and Dolly immediately starts making comments towards Kold Killa, telling her that she looks different with her makeup on because the black eye that she gave her in the previous episode was covered up. So Kold Killa obviously claps back, and rightfully so, and she tells Dolly that she looks real different without the makeup on. So while Dolly and Kold Killa are going back and forth, Summer ends up walking up on Kold Killa, and Kold Killa just throws baby powder in Summer's face. Now the baby powder really didn't do anything to Summer because she was still fighting Kold Killa. To me, nobody won that fight between the two of them. Both of them swung a little bit, kind of missed a little bit, and ripped each other's wigs off. But I will say, I feel like Kold Killa was already planning to throw that baby powder on one of them, because why did she already have that on her while she was outside? So she must have knew that she was going to end up getting into it with somebody, and she had that baby powder on hand. Now, I will say it's a little bit scary to have baby powder on you so that you can throw that in somebody's face so that you can win a fight. But I mean, she did it, and to me, nobody won. So when the fight between Summer and Kold Killa gets broken up, Dolly starts telling some of the other girls outside why they were all beefing in the first place. She said that Summer said Fauna's name wrong, and that's what caused all the fight on the bus, which is what caused the fight. But then Dolly starts talking about being a trio and how the new girls think they're a trio and they're gonna replace them. And I just feel like the whole trios thing is dumb. I think it's fine for Dolly, Summer, and Lex to be cool with each other and have each other's back, but I don't think that they have to refer to themselves as a trio. I mean, I think that's what people branded them as, but I personally don't think that it's necessary. However, Kold Killa and Dolly start fighting with each other, and I'm sorry, Dolly was whooping Kold Killa, okay? She was uppercutting that girl and everything. Like, I don't even know why Kold Killa even tried to fight Dolly, because she definitely lost. Now, Summer did try to get involved, but Russian Cream and Pretty P grabbed her really quickly, and they were telling her not to get involved, so Summer agreed that she was not going to get involved. I feel like they don't need to jump in each other's fights because they really don't be needing the help like that. Like, I really do feel like these girls have been handling themselves to where they don't need each other to jump in anything. So then Dolly and Kold Killa start fighting again, and Kold Killa tries to kick Dolly, and that does not work, and Dolly just starts whooping her again. She gets her on the floor, and she starts kind of pulling her by her hair, hitting her. I was like, damn, she really did whoop this girl. Like, I'm sorry, Kold Killa has a really pretty face, and I do respect the fact that she'll get in the paint, but she can't fight. I'm sorry. So then Ivory ends up going to have a talk with Kay Rican and Ahna in their room, and she ends up asking them what their beef is with Dolly, Summer, and Lex, and they start telling Ivory that when they were on the bus on the way to the Baddies' house, Summer started saying Fauna's name wrong, and when they corrected her on it, Summer was basically saying, F your name, nobody's gonna care about your name. So Kold Killa ended up checking Summer about it, calling her Winter, and the two of them started fighting with each other, and that's when all 6 girls start fighting with each other on the bus. Now look, Ivory did end up asking them if they have an issue with Big Lex. They said they don't have an issue with Big Lex because when they were on the bus, she wasn't the one saying things to them. She did get involved when everybody started swinging, but other than that, she really didn't do anything. And they said that they understood that even if she doesn't have an issue with them, if they're fighting her friends, she's going to get involved in it. So they said that they understood that because they said that they were going to do the same thing for their friends. So they said that they didn't care that Lex was getting involved once people started swinging on each other. So Ivory ends up telling them that she's going to have Elsie come into the room with Big Lex so that they can have a conversation and try to squash their beef. But Kay Rican made it clear to Ivory that if Elsie comes in the room, she's fighting her because they were fighting in last week's episode. So Big Lex and Elsie come into the room, and Elsie goes up to Ivory, I think trying to give Ivory a hug or something. And Kay Rican is already on a 10, and she's walking up towards Elsie, and Elsie turns around and she takes her drink and throws it in Kay Rican's face, and the two of them start fighting. Now look, this was a weak ass fight. These two girls cannot fight at all. They were not swinging or anything. They were just grabbing onto each other, falling all over the place. It was ridiculous. So then when that fight got broken up because security broke it up and Big Lex kind of broke it up a little bit too, then Elsie and Kay Rican start fighting with each other again. And this time they're rolling around on the bed and they're kind of like grabbing onto each other's faces with their hands, and security is not coming over there to break it up quick enough. It looks like they're getting ready to start like scratching or digging each other. So Big Lex runs over there and she's trying to break them up, and Fauna runs over there because she doesn't like that Big Lex is breaking up the fight. So Fauna ends up grabbing onto Lex, trying to move her, and Lex is laying on her back at this point on the bed, and she snatches up Fauna for grabbing her, and she starts fighting Fauna, and then security gets in the way to try to break it up, and it looks like, I guess, Kay Rican started swinging on Big Lex Lex too, while Big Lex was already fighting Fauna on the bed. So Ivory starts yelling for them to stop jumping Lex, and Ivory runs over there and she starts swinging on Fauna. And I'm like, damn, like she's having Big Lex's back. Like this is a big turnaround from last season, because they were beefing all season last season, even at the reunion. And now, you know, Ivory sees Big Lex getting jumped by two people and she gets involved and she jumps in. I respect it. I definitely do respect it. But Ivory tried to go on live yesterday and say that she didn't mean to hit Fauna and that her and Fauna talked about it. It's like, girl, you definitely meant to hit Fauna. You were yelling at them for jumping Big Lex, and that's the reason why you swung on her, because it was 2 against 1. I don't know why Ivory felt like she needed to come on to live and say that she didn't mean to hit Fauna, when it was clear as day in this scene that she meant to hit Fauna, because Fauna and Kay Rican were both hitting Big Lex at the same time. It's like, girl, you don't need to defend your reasoning for hitting Fauna, because you had a real reason to do it. You were evening the playing field when you seen a girl getting jumped. So I just don't know why she decided to come online and do that. I guess she wanted to make it clear that her and Fauna talked after that situation and cleared up whatever issues that they had. But honestly, if Fauna forgave Ivory for that, it's because she didn't want to have to fight Ivory because she was scared. Because let's be real, if any of them other girls would have hit her like that, she probably would have wanted to fight them later on in the episode. Now, when security breaks it up and they're getting off the bed, Big Lex and Fauna are being held by security, and Big Lex was catching Fauna a little bit in her face while they were being held by security. And then Fauna is standing on the bed and she's trying to catch her breath, and Big Lex tells her that she wants to fight again, and she starts asking Big Lex to let her catch her breath first. I don't know what's up with Kay Rican and Fauna and them not being able to catch their breath after a fight, but maybe Elsie had the right idea when she was telling them not to be smoking at the restaurant. I mean, maybe they shouldn't be smoking if they need to catch their breath every 2 seconds, even for a 5-second fight that they had. I just think that's weird. So Fauna ends up jumping off the bed and landing on top of Big Lex, and they fall on the bed. Now, Fauna was not swinging when she was on top of Big Lex. She just had her hands holding herself up on the bed, but she wasn't swinging, which was a mistake, because Big Lex ended up rolling over onto the floor, and now she's on top of Fauna and she's hitting her while security is trying to break them up. Fauna's mistake is when she landed on top of Big Lex, she should have been swinging on her, and she wasn't. And I definitely watched that in slow motion. Fauna fell on top of Big Lex and she wasn't swinging at all, and that was stupid. Now, Big Lex and Fauna end up fighting one more round, and this time Big Lex was kind of catching her a little bit. I'm not going to say Big Lex whooped Fauna because she didn't whoop her, but Fauna was swinging with her head down and she was swinging with an open hand, so Lex was just able to catch her a few times before security ended up breaking it up. But now we know the reason why Elsie and Lex came in the room together and why Elsie was on a 10 was because apparently when the camera stopped rolling after that episode last week, apparently a lot of the other girls are saying that Elsie ended up getting jumped by Kay Rican, Kold Killa, and Fauna. Now, we didn't get to see it because the cameras weren't rolling, but a lot of the girls said that Elsie definitely got jumped when the camera stopped rolling. So that must be the reason why Elsie wanted Lex to come with her in the room with Ivory, Fauna, and Kay Rican, because she probably thought that she was going to end up getting jumped again. I'm just annoyed that we didn't get to see that when the cameras were rolling, because that's why we're kind of confused about a lot of the things that happen on this show and a lot of the beefs, because we're not able to see everything that happens. Now, this is Ahna's last episode. She ends up making a little cameo when Diamond goes to visit her to have a conversation before she ends up leaving Africa. She basically ends up saying that she didn't get fired from the show, she decided to leave. But technically, if Natalie, who is the creator and the producer of the show, is refusing to film with you, then technically you did get fired, because if they're refusing to film with you, that means that you're not really a part of the season. So technically you kind of did get let go. Now, Ahna does admit that she still has love for Natalie, because despite the issues that they have with each other, she does admit that Natalie has done a lot for her. I just feel like Ahna shouldn't have got involved in other people's issues that they had with Natalie, because she doesn't have an actual issue with Natalie. She just got involved in other issues that people have with her. Diamond the Body doesn't even have a real issue with Natalie, and she said that herself at the reunion, and admits that she creates fake beefs for entertainment purposes because that's what she's supposed to do, entertain people. So why anybody takes any beef that Diamond the Body has seriously is a little bit weird to me. And then her getting involved in Jayla and Scotty's issues that they have with Natalie was weird too, because the whole reason why Ahna was beefing with Summer last season is because Summer got involved in Scotty, Jayla, Rolly, and Natalie's issues that they have with each other in Hawaii. And Ahna was the main one beefing with Summer because she said that Summer should have stayed out of it because she's not involved in their friendship, but Anna's not involved in their friendship either, so she should have stayed out of whatever issues Scotty and Jayla had with Natalie, because as much as you guys want to think that Jayla and Scotty are innocent, if they were that innocent, they would not be friends with Natalie. As much as people think that Natalie is such a terrible person, how has Jayla and Scotty been able to be friends with Natalie all this time if they're not just as bad as her then? I mean, come on, let's be real. They're friends with Natalie because of what it does for them to be friends with her. It benefits them to be in a friendship with Natalie. If it wasn't for her, they wouldn't have been on the show and nobody would really know them. Now, we would know Jayla because we know her from Bad Girls Club, but she wouldn't have been on our screens again had she not been on Baddies, and Natalie was the one that asked her to come on the show. So I just feel like people do too much in these situations. I feel like Ahna played herself in this situation. I do feel like Ahna will be back on the show at some point. I just don't think that it's going to be next season. I think she'll probably take a couple of seasons off and then she'll eventually end up being back. I just think that she should have stayed out of whatever issues people had with Natalie. I just felt like it wasn't her place to get involved and she should have just stayed out of it. Now, Dolly and Ivory surprisingly end up having a really peaceful conversation with each other. Dolly says that she wants to squash whatever beef that she has with Ivory because they're already beefing with some of the new girls and she doesn't want to take old beef from last season into this new season. And Ivory agrees to squash the beef because she said that they were cool with each other before the premiere. The premiere, they ended up getting into a fight and that's why they fought at the beginning of this season. So look, I don't think that they'll be cool with each other for long, but I do like that they were able to squash whatever issues that they had for the moment. I think it was definitely mature of the two of them. Now, Natalie is getting ready to call a house meeting and she talks to Ahna, Kold Killa, and Kay Rican first because she wants to find out what issues they have going on in the house. And basically, the girls end up telling Natalie that the reason why they were beefing with the big three is because Summer was basically disrespecting Ahna's name. They felt some type of way about it and all of them started beefing on the bus. They say that they're not a trio. They just have each other's back. I think it's fine if they don't want to call each other a trio, but they're definitely acting like one. I think the trios thing is dumb, like I said earlier in my review, but at the end of the day, people are going to be friends with and cool with and have each other's back with whoever they want to. Natalie does tell them that they have a booking that they have to go to and she doesn't want anybody to fight at the clubs in South Africa because they'll get banned and then it'll mess up their money. So after meeting with them, she ends up meeting with the next group of girls. She ends up meeting with Tavii, Elsie, and Russian Cream, and basically they end up telling Natalie that Elsie ended up getting jumped when the camera stopped rolling, okay? Which is why we know that's why Lex went into the room with Elsie to talk to Ivory, Kay Rican, and Ahna, because apparently Elsie ended up getting jumped later that night. And Russian said that she has an issue with Kay Rican because Kay Rican went back and told Elsie some stuff that Russian was saying about her, but Kay Rican forgot to mention the things that she was actually saying about Elsie as well, because apparently Elsie said that Kay Rican was talking about her family, about her husband, about her life, and so she said basically that that's the reason why she fought her. That's the reason why Russian wanted to fight Kay Rican in last week's episode. Now look, I do think that Russian had a reason to have an issue with Kay Rican because if you're going to go back and tell what I said about somebody, tell what you were saying about them too. However, I don't think that they necessarily had to fight because of it. So Natalie ends up calling one of her messy house meetings, and look, I've grown to actually enjoy the house meetings because I know it's going to be entertaining to watch. So they end up having a house meeting, and that's when Tavii starts going off because she starts calling out Kay Rican, Kold Killa, and Ahna for apparently jumping Elsie when the camera stopped rolling. Now they claim they did not jump Elsie, but a lot of the other girls are saying otherwise. So truly, I don't know what to believe because we didn't actually see it ourselves. So Tavii jumps up and she wants to fight Kay Rican. So her and Kay Rican start fighting with each other, and I'm just gonna give the win to Tavii because Kay Rican can't fight. I mean, she swings, but it doesn't look like she's connecting. It doesn't look like she hits hard, and she fights with her head down. Then Tavii wants to fight Ahna. Basically, she's going down the list. So her and Ahna start fighting with each other, and really neither one of them really did anything. It was definitely a better fight than she had with Kay Rican because Kay Rican can't fight and Ahna can fight just a little tiny bit, but it didn't really look like either one of them did anything, and security ended up breaking it up. Then Russian Cream hops up and she wants to fight Kay Rican. So her and Kay Rican start fighting. They really didn't get to do much because security broke it up. So I can't say who won that fight, but I will say that if security didn't break it up and they continued to fight, I do think Russian would have won because Kay Rican just cannot fight. I'm sorry. Then Elsie comes out of nowhere and she sneaks Kay Rican from behind, and Kay Rican turns around, and this time I will say that Kay Rican won this fight because she was the only one swinging. I don't understand why Elsie does not swing when she fights, but honestly, she's gonna get on my nerves this season. I mean, I don't have a real issue with her, but the fact that she fights and doesn't swing pisses me the hell off. Then Ahna and Russian Cream start trying to fight, but security gets in the way and all they're really doing is pulling on each other's shirts, so that wasn't really a fight, so I can't even get a winner in that one. But then Tavii ends up going up to Kold Killa and she asks her to fight, and Kold Killa ends up trying to kick at Tavii. She tries to kick her twice and Tavii ends up grabbing onto her leg and dropping her on the floor. She was on top of her, hitting her for a couple of seconds, so I will give the win to Tavii. I don't understand why these girls get into these fights and try to kick because really it doesn't end up working. I mean, it kind of works for Scotty a little bit, but that's because Scotty's tall and has long legs. If you're short and you're fighting somebody way taller than you, why are you kicking? Because you're not going to really be able to do anything. Now, Rolly and Rush and Cream end up getting into a little bit of a heated back and forth, so now we know why the two of them end up getting into a fight at some point this season, because I definitely saw the two of them fighting in the trailer. The reason why Russian and Rolly kind of had a back and forth is because Rolly was trying to tell the reason why Ahna, Kold Killa, and Kay Rican have an issue with Elsie. She was telling the story about what happened when they were all standing outside, and Elsie ended up coming up to Kay Rican asking her if she wanted to fight, and Kay Rican swung on her, and that caused all the chaos in last week's episode. But Russian was trying to chime in because she was trying to give a backstory to what the beef was actually about, and then Elsie getting jumped later that night when the camera stopped rolling. But Rolly got upset because she felt like Russian Cream had an issue with her because she kept interrupting her when she was talking. Now, Russian did tell Rolly that she didn't have an issue with her, but I don't really like the way that Rolly was kind of trying to little girl Russian Cream. Like, Russian wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong. Yes, she was interrupting her when she was talking, but she was trying to tell the truth. Rolly would have did the same thing if somebody didn't have the backstory about something that had to do with her. She would have cut them off too, trying to get the real reason for the beef out there as well. So I don't feel like Rolly getting hostile with Russian Cream was necessary. Then Natalie ends up asking Summer if she's going to apologize to Ahna for saying her name wrong, and Ahna said that she didn't want an apology, and Summer told her she wasn't getting one anyway. So they started having a little bit of a back and forth, and Natalie ends up asking the girls one more time if they'll be able to go to the club and not fight, because they cannot fight at the South African clubs or they'll end up getting banned. And Summer said, yeah, we can after this. So Summer gets up and she starts fighting Kay Rican, and look, Summer was getting Kay Rican. I'm sorry. Summer was swinging and she was catching Kay Rican. Kay Rican was turning her head, trying not to get hit. She was swinging with her head down, swinging at the air. I'm surprised. Summer has been fighting a lot better this season. Now, I don't necessarily agree with Summer trying to fight Kay Rican because I didn't think it was necessary at the moment. However, she definitely was whooping Kay Rican. I'm sorry, she was. And then Big Lex gets up and she wants to fight Ahna because of the fight that they had earlier in the day. And Lex and Ahna swing on each other twice, and then all of a sudden Dolly just gets involved, and it's like, damn, Dolly, let Lex fight for herself. She can fight on her own. Lex doesn't even like people getting involved in her fight. She just told Summer in last week's episode not to get involved in her fight. She said that she appreciated Summer trying to have her back, but she can fight for herself, especially when it's one-on-one. I can see if Lex was getting jumped, then Dolly should have got involved, but Lex was not getting jumped. I don't understand why Dolly got involved in that fight. Now look, the previews for next week's episode is crazy. That food fight between the big three and the new three was crazy. Like, that's probably why Zeus does not be feeding these girls, because look what happens when they feed them. They start throwing all the food and all the cups and plates. Like, they need to start feeding them with plastic cups, spoons, forks, and knives, because they cannot have any real glass, because they were throwing that shit everywhere. But those are my thoughts on this week's episode of Baddies Africa. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comment section, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video.